Okay, greetings everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For those of us that are signing in, my name is Mike Rocca. I work for the Florida Department of Transportation in the Engineering CAD Systems Office. Today's webinar is titled Getting MicroStation and Civil 3D to Play Well Together. A lot of this is based on the FDOT State Kit for AutoCAD Civil 3D 2015. And we're going to talk about the inevitable exchange that all of us are faced with at one point or another of exchanging geometric and CAD data between Bentley and the Autodesk platforms. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so you've been tasked with transferring your CAD drawing or drawings from MicroStation to Civil 3D or from Civil 3D to MicroStation. And you want to know what some of your options are and what are some preferred methods in doing so. In this webinar, we're going to discuss some tools and methods that we include in the State Kit that help make this task a little easier and take some of the guesswork out of the process. So before we get started, let me just point out a few things. Before you begin this process, in your Civil 3D drawings, you have objects such as surfaces, alignments, parcels, and such that are exported from Civil 3D, and these will function much like any other regular AutoCAD data. When I say regular AutoCAD data, I mean things like lines, arcs, circles, and such. For example, a surface object that's being transferred from Civil 3D is basically converted to polylines, so only polyline editing is allowed in plain AutoCAD or MicroStation platforms. If you're trying to import or export Civil 3D data, or some of us know this as AEC object data like architectural, electrical, or construction, objects like alignments, surfaces, and profiles, or other intelligent objects, you should look into the option of importing or exporting via XML or just recreating the objects altogether. And I'll demonstrate how to export your data to Lana XML later on in the session. So once more, it should be noted that some intelligence may be lost when transferring data between the MicroStation and Civil 3D platforms. Essentially, after importing or exporting the data to Civil 3D, you'll only be able to use basic information to filter through your data. The reason for this is, well, because of two things. The information is stored and displayed differently in the two programs, MicroStation and Autodesk. And MicroStation and AutoCAD users often use different methods to create CAD files. So I have in big letters here that it is highly recommended that transferring the data between the two CAD systems be your last resort. If at all possible, always strive to keep the data in its native format. So let's talk a little bit about software prerequisites. For this webinar, I'm using the most current or latest version of the FDOT Civil 3D State Kit. This should be installed. Currently, only 2014 is out. Having the latest will help ensure that during the conversion process that your line types, fonts, layers, and so forth will translate to the latest in FDOT CAD standards. There are some translation files that are installed and a valid support file search path in your local hard drive with the State Kit. This is installed on your local hard drive in the FDOT 2015 or 14.c3d folder, and then there's a support folder and a translation folder. In that translation folder, you have a configuration settings file that's named DGN Settings.ini, and this is used for mapping translations such as layers, colors, and line weight. In the installation, to ensure that MicroStation custom line types are displayed, resource files or .rsc files are referenced from Civil 3D when importing custom line types by the DGN file. These files are included with the State Kit as well. This helps for reducing the missing SHX font message. The .rsc file is equivalent to a .line file in AutoCAD, and this is a MicroStation file that contains custom line types. So just recently, a release or two ago, Civil 3D has been able to recognize this resource file and help recognize custom line types. So we've included this in the State Kit. A MicroStation f.c3d.dgn file is provided as well when creating new DGNs for importing Civil 3D objects that have 3D or Z value properties. So when we're going to create a new DGN file later, we'll use this template to create our new file to bring in our AutoCAD. I've got a link here. The FDOT Civil 3D State Kit can be obtained from www.dot.state.fl.us. It's under the ECSO link under downloads and then software. And also just for a reminder that the Autodesk AutoCAD Civil 3D 2015 Service Pack 1, which was released on July 18, 2014. This can be obtained from www.autodesk.com. That should be installed as well. All right, so there's 3 sections to this webinar. The first section is taking a MicroStation DGN file and importing it into a DWG file. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about setting up the FDOT MicroStation DGN file. We're going to talk about opening up the DGN file and how to prepare it. Because where I work at, I have the opportunity to talk to some MicroStation experts here, and they gave me a couple of tips on what they may do to prepare a DGN file. So we're going to look at a few of those options. I know this will only be optional because I realize that not everybody has the luxury of having MicroStation installed on their computer. And then next we'll look at preparing an FDOT drawing before importing our DGN information. So we'll look at how to choose the FDOT template and how to go in there and edit some of the DWG settings before we import the information. And then last we'll import the DGN file into Civil 3D, and we'll examine the import DGN settings dialog box in Civil 3D. The next section of this webinar, we're going to look at how to take a DWG file and export it out into MicroStation. We'll look at the conversion process of how it takes Civil 3D objects and exports them out so with a regular AutoCAD or MicroStation can open up and view these Civil 3D objects in a file. And then we'll look at importing an FDOT DWG file into MicroStation using the FDOT C3D DGN file that comes installed with the Civil 3D State Kit. And then last but not least, we'll look at some tips for cleaning up a drawing file. We'll look at how to use the purge command. We'll look at the design center. We'll look at how to reset your line styles using the latest FDOT line style that comes installed with the State Kit as well. So the first thing I want to look at is preparing a DGN file. I know it's not always possible to perform the following steps due to MicroStation being unavailable on your workstation. So these steps here are they're only recommended. We're going to set up the scale in MicroStation so that the DGN is seen in real world coordinates by setting the plot scale to a 1:1 and apply that scale to all the objects in the DGN file. And of course the reason why we do this is because when you draw in Civil 3D, you draw in model space, and everything in model space should be at a 1:1 scale. So we're kind of pre-setting this up so it's a 1:1 scale when we bring it into the AutoCAD environment. And the next one we're going to do is set all custom line type scales to a 1:1 scale as well. And this step is based on having the FDOT CAD pilot installed and launched it in MicroStation. So the next step we're going to take here is we're going to launch MicroStation, which I already have it launched in the background here. And we're going to take this topo drawing and we're going to open it up. The reason why I like to start with a topo drawing is because I think it's the file that is converted back and forth to most, because it's an existing, it shows the existing topography of a file, and it's also the base file for most of our design drawings. So that's why I chose to use it for this example. So we have the DGN file up. We can zoom in here a little bit. We can see that we have some dotted and dashed lines. This represents existing topography in a drawing. We also have some tree line work in here, when we have some cells as well. So we're going to look at how some of these are transferred over to AutoCAD. With CAD Pilot running, what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the Actions pull-down menu, and we're going to choose Plot Scale of File. So when you pull this up, right now it's set at a scale of 40. So when a MicroStation user prints this out, it's going to come out at a 40 scale. So this is pretty simple. All we're going to do is just set that to 1 and click OK. And then the next step we're going to do is go to the Action pull-down menu, and we're going to choose Custom Line Type Utilities and set Custom Line Type Scale to 1. You won't see too much happen. It'll flash on the screen a little bit, do a little bit of zoom extents. That's basically all that you need to do as far as preparing the DGN file before we import it into AutoCAD. So I'm going to go ahead and say File, Save, and then we're going to go ahead and close out this drawing. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to go into AutoCAD, Civil 3D, and we're going to go to the FDOT ribbon, and we're going to use the Create File tool and create a new drawing based on a template, survey template. And then we're going to go into the existing drawing settings and assign a coordinate to our file. And then we're going to import the file into Civil 3D, and we're going to look at the import dialog box. So we go back here into Civil 3D. when you install the state kit is an add-on that installs on top of Civil 3D. And we know that it's installed by, if you come up here on top, you notice that with our regular Civil 3D tools, on the far right here, we actually have an FDOT tab or an FDOT ribbon. When we choose this, we have all our tools that are specific to FDOT. On the left-hand file here, on the left-hand side here, we have a Create File tool. So let's go ahead and launch Create File. And what this does, this allows us to take a template that was installed with the state kit. It's going to take that template that has things like styles and line types and layers and such set up in it already. It's going to rename that file and it's going to put it in the appropriate folder. So let's just kind of run down this dialog box a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our project is currently selected. If it's not selected, you can come over here and say select projects and pick the correct project. And all you do is you just basically select the FPID number, which is the top level folder, and click OK. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to kind of filter down your list here by choosing your discipline. And then you're going to choose a file group. So we're going to go down here and say Survey Design Files. And then we're going to choose Topography Existing. This is the new file that we want to create. When we come down here on the bottom, and I just kind of want to point out a few things, how this works. What this is doing is, from the install directory in the template path, we have a data folder and templates. In that template folder, we have a DWT file called topo.rd.dwt. What it's going to do is it's going to take that template, it's going to rename it topo.rd01, which is based on our CAD, FDOT CAD standard naming convention, and it's going to place it in an output folder in our project directory in the survey folder. Okay? So only thing that's left to do is to go ahead and say create file and open file. You'll see it opening up in the background. I'll just give it a few seconds here, and then we can go ahead and click close. So it's pretty simple. The next thing we want to do is look at some drawing settings. We want to set up our coordinate system in this drawing before we import our topo drawing. So let's go ahead and go to the Home tab, and what we're going to do is we're going to launch this tool called the Tool Space. What this tool space is on the Prospector tab. This basically shows you a collection of your Civil 3D data that's currently in your drawing. Since this is a blank drawing, right now we don't really have anything in here, so there's nothing really here to expand. But if we go over to the Settings folder, what this does is lets us take a look at styles and labels and such that are predefined in this drawing. If we come up here to the top at the name, we can right-click on the name and we can choose Edit Drawing Settings. What this does is lets us set up the units and zones for this particular file. So for this project, for the zone, I'm going to go ahead and click on this down arrow here, and I want to go to the USA, Florida. So I'm going to press U on the keyboard, and that's going to bring me down to the U area. And we're going to choose USA, Florida. And then it shows the available coordinate systems for Florida. So I'm going to click on the down arrow here, and we're going to choose NAD 83 Florida State Plains East Zone US foot. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply and click OK. So next, how do we know that that coordinate has been applied to this drawing? What signifies that that's the correct coordinate and it's applied to this drawing? Well, down on the bottom here, you should see a map status bar. If you don't see the map status bar, what you can do is at the command line type in map status, and AutoCAD will fill the rest of the information out for you, but the command is map status bar. Press enter, and you have two options whether you want to show or hide that status bar. Right now it's set to hide, so I'm going to do S for show and press enter. So on the bottom here you can see that this is set up to FL83 East Zone. Okay. With the state kit installed, we actually have a little shortcut set up for you, and it's a key in command. If you type in set, S-E-T, FL, you can see that quickly we have east, north, and west zones, which are the three zones for Florida. So we could just as we right-clicked and chose the drawing name and said drawing settings, we could do the same thing here by just typing in set FL and then choose east, north, and west, and that will also set the coordinates for us in this drawing as well. Okay. So the next step is to go ahead and import our DGN file into Civil 3D. So anytime that we want to import something or insert something into our drawing, we're always going to come up here and click on the Insert tab. Okay. So when we choose Insert, the very first option we have on the left here is Import. When you pick Import, you're given the option to pick what file type you want to choose. File type, you can see that we have different type of files. We have IGES and 3D Studio, things like that. We want to make sure that for MicroStation, we have the MicroStation DGN selected. I just want to make sure that I'm in the right project, and I'm going to go here to my survey folder, and I'm going to choose that topo drawing DGN file that we were looking at the beginning of this webinar, and then click Open. So when you click Open, you get this dialog box. Look like it has all these options. Don't let this dialog box intimidate you. We're going to kind of explain some of these settings and what they all mean. Like most dialog boxes in Civil 3D, you kind of want to read it like a book. Start at the top left-hand corner and work your way down left to right. So the first option we have here is what do you want to do with this drawing? Do you want to import it into the current drawing? If I unselect it, what that's going to do is just going to take the regular vanilla AutoCAD drawing and import it in. But we want to go ahead and import it into this drawing because we have our styles and layers and settings already in it. The next option we have here is to ignore duplicate names. We want to have that selected. And what this does, this ignores any duplicate named objects such as layer names or dimension styles in the DGN file, and this gives precedence to the existing definitions for duplicate names in the current AutoCAD DWG file that I have open, like layer names, dimension styles, and such. So we want to make sure that we have that selected. This next option where it says to select a design model for the DGN file, in MicroStation you can have multiple design models. In AutoCAD you can only have one. So if you have a DGN file that has multiple designs, you'd pick it from this list. But in this case we only have one, so default is selected for us. For the external DGN references, this is very similar to X references in AutoCAD. This is asking you, what do you want to do with any DGN references that are attached to this file? Well, here we're going to say attach as a DGN underlay. We're going to have them come in, but they're not going to convert, but they may show up as an XREF in the background. And then, of course, you can launch the XREF Manager and detach them or unload them if you need be. So we're just going to go ahead and leave attach as the DGN selected. The conversion units section allows you to select the appropriate unit for translation. For reference, the master units and subunits of your selected DGN file are pre-selected for your convenience. So basically, kind of Autodesk is kind of reading the DGN file and saying, hey, master units is being used for the DGN file. So master units is already pre-selected for you, so you don't have to worry about that too much. For explode text nodes or text elements, this should be unchecked. And what this does is this maintains the multiple lines of text as a single multi-line text object, or very similar to MText in AutoCAD. If you have this checked, it's going to take that text element and it's going to explode it and break it down into where each character is a single element. So we want to come in as an MText object, so we're going to go ahead and leave that unchecked. On the right here, we have our mapping setup. This is reading that that INI file that I pointed out earlier that's installed in the translation folder. In the Import DGN Setups dialog box, we want to ensure that FDOT import is chosen. And what this does, this ensures that all the line types, levels, and line weights are imported correctly. On the right, a mapping preview for this setup is displayed on the right here. So for layer, it's just saying if it's a barrier wall in the DGN file, map it to the barrier wall in the DWG file. Okay, it's going to use the same layer naming convention. If you go to line weights, it's going to basically be the same. If it's a border line weight, line type, use the border line type in the DWG file. And you can see some of these are different. Some of these are using the name, and some of these are being assigned to by layer. It's going to let the layer control what the line type is. Okay, and same thing for line weight. Everything, as far as line weight is concerned, everything is being controlled by the layer itself. Okay, so that's really it for the import dialog box. So the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and click OK. and it's going to read that information in. If you don't see anything happen at first, what you might want to do is just double click on the wheel of your mouse, and what that does is that performs a zoom extents, and that extends to the drawing here. So we're going to zoom in and just kind of look at the information here real quick. We may have remembered that when we had this open in MicroStation, we saw some dashed lines, but here it doesn't appear to be dashed. Well, that's pretty easy to fix. All we're going to do is type in regen at the command line and press enter, and now we have our dotted lines. Okay, we can see that everything came in pretty good. We still have our cell, which has now been converted over to a block. Our colors came in real nice. We still have our tree line here on the side like we had earlier. If your line type scale doesn't look quite like you want it to, you may want to be more dashed or what have you. You can come down here on the bottom right and you can choose different scales to fit your need. We didn't see anything happen, so if we type in RE-gen or just RE for short and press enter, you'll see that the line type scales will change accordingly. Okay, so you know, after you got all these changes made and everything looks good like you want them to, just come up and save your file. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and let's move on over to the next step of the webinar. So for the next step, what we're going to do is look at how to export a Civil 3D drawing from MicroStation and import it into from AutoCAD into MicroStation. Again, in order for the Civil 3D objects like surface, alignments, and pipes to show up in MicroStation without having to export the drawing, we must export the Civil 3D drawing to a plain vanilla AutoCAD DWG file. This procedure takes all the civil objects and converts them into blocks. The current drawing that you have open is not affected. Also remember that just doing a simple save as command does not have the same effect as doing an export. Okay, so just keep that in mind. In Civil 3D, as on the slide here points out, it was a pretty simple process. You basically went to the application pull-down menu, you chose export DWG, and then you chose the version that you want to save back to. But here in Civil 3D 2015, the process is a little different. You actually get a little bit more elaborate dialog box that gives you a few more options, and it actually allows you to do a batch export. So you can choose multiple drawings at once, whether they're all in a folder or it's a single drawing or it's an entire project, and export those all at one time. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our Civil 3D, and we're going to open up a file here that's got some Civil 3D objects in it. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and make sure I'm just in the right project here. We're going to go to the roadway folder, and we're going to choose our Design Road 01 drawing. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. Now, like I was discussing earlier, if you want to bring these objects into these Civil 3D objects into another platform, like in MicroStation, where it recognizes surfaces and alignments and such, what you'd want to do is use the Export XML option. And to do that, it's pretty simple. You can do it a few different ways. You can go to the Prospector tab, and you can do it on an object-by-object basis. So let's say, for example, we want to take the surface, which you can see here. If I kind of highlight over, you can see we have a border, and we have some dotted lines representing major and minor contours of an existing surface. You can select that surface, right-click, and choose Export Land XML. Okay, we can do the same thing for our alignments. We can go down here for our alignments, select it, right-click, and choose Export Land XML. Okay, so I'll just do alignments here. So it goes through and it shows that, okay, you selected alignments. It's going to gather everything as far as profiles, views are concerned, and export that data out. Another way we can do this is we can go to the Output ribbon up on top here, and we can choose Export to Land XML. And we get this box, and it kind of selects everything in a dialog box. Well, if you want to kind of pick and choose what you want to export out particularly, you can come up here and choose Uncheck All, So it takes all the checks away from all your objects. And we can just say, I just want to export the existing ground surface, and I just want to export those alignments. As far as the version of Land XML, the latest version is 1.2. And the last option here is you can just pick from the drawing what you want to export out. And you just click OK, and it's going to ask you where do you want to save that Land XML. You pick a destination, you can give it a different file name, and then click Save. So it's a pretty simple process. So I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. And let's take a look at how we would export this drawing out. So I'm going to go to the Application pull-down menu and choose Export. We can do it from here, Export Civil 3D Drawing, or under the Output ribbon, we can also choose Export Civil 3D Drawing from here as well. Okay, so there's always a second option on how to do things in AutoCAD. So we're going to choose this option here, and this dialog box comes up. And again, we're going to read it like a book, start from left to right, top to bottom. It says to choose the file type to export. We want to choose an AutoCAD DWG file. As far as the external references are concerned, or XREFs, so what do we want to do with those? Well, we have a few options here. Let me just kind of explain real quick. We have the option to ignore, which this ignores any references that are attached to the drawing, and only the current drawing is exported out. We have the option to bind, which converts the external drawings references to a block and makes it a permanent part of the exported drawing. We have a bind and explode, which uses the bind option, binds it to the drawing, and then once it's a block, it explodes the resulting block. We have bind and insert, which again, it binds the external drawing reference to the drawing in a way that is similar to detaching and inserting a reference drawing. The XREF dependent named objects are stripped of the XREF name. Okay. We have a bind, insert, and explode, which again binds and inserts the drawing and then explodes the resulting block. And then we just have the last option, which is detach, which detaches the external DWG reference from the drawing before it exports it out. Okay. So for this, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're just going to say ignore any XREFs that are in the drawing. For files to export, this is one of the main reasons why we have this new dialog box in 2015, because we can export multiple files at one time instead of just one drawing at a time. By default, current drawing only is selected. Okay, we see here in the list that right now the current drawing is DSGN RD01. You have an option here to say select drawings in a source folder. So this looks in the folder that you have specified and picks all the drawings that are in it. And you can include drawings in a subfolder as well. So you can pick the top level drawing and it'll look for all the files. I'm sorry. You can pick the top folder and it'll look for all the drawings in that folder, or you can include drawings in the subfolders. Okay. So just for this example, we're going to just say the current drawing only. For export settings, up here on top, you choose back which DWG file version that you want to save back to. Okay, for this we're going to save back to an older version because we're using SS2 from MicroStation, so we're going to save back to 2007 version. Or if you're sending your drawing to someone who's just using regular AutoCAD, they may be using an older version than what you have, so you have the option to save back to their version or a previous version than what they're using. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK to this. I just want to point out the source folder here. This is grayed out. The reason why this is grayed out is because we're choosing current drawing only. If we were to pick a source folder, then we'd come over here and specify the source folder that we want to use. The destination folder option is this is just saying, okay, once we export this file out, where do we want to save it? I'm just putting it back in the roadway folder where we had it. Then you have two options here. You have an option to give the new drawing a prefix or a suffix. What I like to do here is put a suffix on it. So I'm going to do something like ACAD, and then I'll put the file version on the end. So whoever's looking at this file knows that it's basically a regular AutoCAD drawing now, and it's been saved back to a 2007 file version. Okay. So next thing we want to do here is go ahead and choose export, and it's going to export our drawing out here. Okay, and then click OK, and then we're going to go ahead and close out this dialog box and go back here into MicroStation. Okay, in MicroStation, we're basically going to do 3 steps here. We're going to create a new file, and we're going to create a new file based on the f.c 3d.dgn file. We're going to give that new file a name, and then we're going to use the import process to import that drawing into our new DGN file. So let's go ahead and go into MicroStation here. In MicroStation, up on the top here, we're going to choose the create new file option, and then we want to make sure that we have our seed file selected, which is basically an equivalent of a DWT file. Okay, so for here, we want to make sure that we're pointing to our install directory, which is f.2015 support translation, and then we're going to choose f.3d file. If that file is not selected, what you do is click Browse, and then here we're just going to kind of browse down. If you have 2014, you'd go there, but again, we're going to use 2015 support translation, and then choose the correct file type and click Open. Okay, and then here it's asking, okay, what is this new file name that we're going to give it? So let's call it DSGNRD01. And click Save. So once we click Save, we can see that new file has been created. So we're going to go ahead and select it and click Open. Okay. Once the drawing is open, we're going to go to the File pull-down menu, and we're going to choose Import, and we're going to choose CAD files. For CAD files, make sure for files of type you have the DWG option selected, and then we're going to go up here to our correct folder. So we're going to go to our project folder here, choose roadway, and then we're going to choose that DSGN RD01 model space ACAD 2007 drawing that we created, and then select Open. Okay, it's going to process it here. If you don't see anything show up, just double click on the wheel of your mouse, and that does zoom extents, very similar to AutoCAD. And we're going to zoom in here a little bit and take a look and see, just kind of quickly examine the objects that came in. We can see that we do have our contours that came in using the dot line type, signifying that those are existing major and minor contours. We have our alignment that came in. It brought in the labeling as well, along with the tick marks. If we come over here to the element information tool and click on it, because we're using a 3D seed file, it was able to bring in the Z element information from our drawing. So if I select one of these contours, you can see here that it did bring in over the elevation. It shows a 5-foot elevation. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward on how to bring in a MicroStation drawing. Just remember one of the main things: if you do not get the contours that come over and the elevations are not showing up, go back and look at the seed file that you use and make sure that you're using a 3dc.dgn file. Or else you will not get that information imported correctly. Okay, so let's go back here to our PowerPoint here. So let's talk about some tips for cleaning up your drawing after importing. A few tools that some of you that are from maybe new to AutoCAD or Civil 3D is there's a tool called Design Center. If you do not have FDOT layers or text styles or dimension styles in your drawing, they can be imported using Design Center. You can type DC at the command line prompt, and you're going to browse to maybe your template has your text styles, the layers, and everything set up in there, and I use Design Center to import those over into your drawing. And I'll demonstrate this in a little bit. You also have a tool called By Layer. All of the layers in your drawing should be set to by layer. If not, you run the by layer command, look at some setting options. You're going to select everything in your drawing, and you're going to say, okay, I want all the colors, line types, and line weights to be controlled by the layer information that they're set on. Okay, and I'll just kind of quickly show you how that little command works there. And then last but not least, as far as line types are concerned, if your drawing file doesn't have the custom line types loaded in, or they don't quite look the way that you expected them to, you can run this command for line type, browse to our FDOT line file, and kind of reload everything, and that will reset your line type so you're now looking at the most current line types in your drawing. So let's take a look on how to use a few of these here real quick. I'm going to go here back into my Civil 3D. I'm going to close out of this file here because I'm no longer using it. Let's go back here to our topo drawing. I guess I could have just stayed at the other one, doesn't matter. To get to Design Center, there's a few ways you can do it. You can go to the Home tab, and on the far left here you have palettes. Up on the top left-hand corner here you have this option for Design Center, or if you can't find the command, again, you can just type in, for short, you can type in DC for Design Center. And what Design Center is, it's kind of like a Windows Explorer built into AutoCAD. It allows you to browse to other drawings or templates and grab information from those from that drawing or template and import it into your drawing. For example, this is a topo drawing. So what I may want to do is go into my state kit here and go to the data folder and go down to templates, and I'm going to find my topo RD drawing or template, excuse me. So there it is. I can expand it out and I can see that, okay, I can borrow blocks from it, so I can borrow dim styles, layers, and such. So if there's a layer that doesn't quite look right in my drawing, it doesn't have maybe the correct colors or such, I can pick layers and then pick a layer, right click, and just add that layer to my drawing, and it's going to override the layer that I currently have, and it's going to update it to the correct color, correct style, and such that's appropriate for our FDOT CAD standards. Okay. The other command that we talked about was this command called set by layer. So for example, if I zoom in here, let's just take this line here. I'm going to select it and right click and look at the properties of it. So right now everything is being controlled by layer, which is it should be. The color on this layer is blue, for example. Well, maybe somebody came up behind me, or maybe the translation process didn't work right, or what have you, and the color is actually yellow, which we know is not correct. It should be a yellow color. And maybe this is happening all throughout my drawing, and I'm looking for some quick and easy way to correct this scenario. So what I can do is type in set by layer and press enter. And if you just kind of follow the command line prompts, it's asking you to select objects or settings. So let's just first take a look at the settings. So I'll do S for settings and press enter. And this is just kind of asking me, okay, what properties do I want to change to by layer? Well, the most common properties are the color, line type, and line weight. So you want to make sure that if you're not getting the results that you want, that you have these three options selected. So that looks good. That's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And go back to my command prompt there, and it says select objects. I can pick this one object if I want to just change it, but I want to do everything in my drawing. I want to make sure everything's set to by layer. So I'm going to go ahead and type in all at the command prompt and press enter. This selects everything in my drawing. Well, that's what I want it to do. So I'm going to press enter again. And just kind of, there's a few more command prompts. This is asking me, do I want to change the blocks to by layer? Yeah, let's do that. Include the blocks. We'll say yes. And then you'll see, you might see the screen flash or whatever. But if you notice, that yellow line that we had now turned back to blue. Okay, and if I select it and look at the properties of it again, we're back to by layer, and that's the proper way that the drawing should be. Okay, and this makes it a lot more easier to manage your objects when things are set to by layer instead of manipulating objects on a one by one or individual basis. Okay, the last thing we talked about here is as far as cleaning up your drawing is line types. Maybe you have a drawing that you converted over, and some of the line types don't look like they should. Maybe look at a little bit older, or and you know that the line types have actually been updated and they should look a little different. So a real easy way to correct this is just by typing line type at the command line and press enter. And what you want to do is come up here in this top right hand corner in the line type manager dialog box and click load. And we're going to browse out by clicking File, and we want to look for this FDOT line type file. This file, again, is located in the installation directory under Support, and we have a line type folder. When you pick that, just choose FDOT line, select Open, and it's going to ask you, okay, what line types do you want to load or reload? So what I'm going to do is just select the top one, hold down the Shift key, scroll all the way to the bottom, pick the last one, and click OK. And you're going to get a dialog box that's going to ask you one by one, reloading each line type. But we want to go ahead and just reload all of them, correct any mistakes that are in there, and make sure that all of our line types are, they meet the FDOT CAD standards. So we're going to select Reload All Line Types and click OK. And you may see something happen, you may not, but you know that it's read that file and the line types are now loaded into your drawing. Okay, and then last but not least, when you're done making those changes, you're done cleaning up your drawing, you may want to just click Save and then, of course, close the drawing out. For the last thing we're going to look at here is just a few additional notes that I want to point out when you're doing the conversion process, or if you find yourself doing this often, that you always want to use true type fonts when possible. Since this is a font type that both MicroStation and AutoCAD support. Okay, so those true type fonts translate back and forth between the two platforms much easier. When you're inside Civil 3D, perform a couple of purges to clear out any unused blocks, textiles, layers, and such. So whenever you go to export your drawing out, that it's not grabbing all that extra information and bringing it into your new file. Okay, you're kind of starting off with a new clean slate. Another command that some of you might be familiar with is this command called the W-block command. You use this to export the entire contents of the drawing to a new file. And kind of the W-block kind of works similar to the purge command. It's a little more effective in leaving back unused information like layers, dimensions, textiles, and such. It kind of leaves the garbage behind and gives you a clean slate to start with. Okay, so the W-block command is a real powerful tool to use. Perform an audit command or the recover command to scan the drawing to see if there's any internal file definition errors in your drawing, because you don't want to send a corrupt file to somebody or something that may give somebody else problems. And last but not least, the pin tables in MicroStation or comparable to AutoCAD plot styles. So if you're worried about colors and such, how they're going to look in each platform when they plot, the pin tables, excuse me, they're basically about the same. Okay, so with that said, that concludes the end of this webinar, getting MicroStation, GeoPack, and AutoCAD to play well together. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, you can email me at mike.rocca@dot.state.fl.us. Again, I have a link here on the screen. If you don't have the state kit, you can go to www.dot.state.fl.us. Go to our ECSO link and downloads and software, and you can obtain the latest state kit from there.